A raft of global institutions, including hospitals, major banks, media outlets, and airlines, have reported a mass IT outage affecting their ability to offer services. International airports, including in India, Hong Kong, the UK, and the US, have reported issues, and several airlines have grounded flights and reported delays. Emergency services have also been affected, with some hospitals cancelling surgeries and the US state of Alaska warning its 911 system may be unavailable. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike has confirmed the cause of the worldwide outage was a result of their defective software update for its Microsoft Windows host. The issue has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed, their statement said, assuring it was not a cyber attack. We further recommend organizations ensure they're communicating with CrowdStrike representatives through official channels. Earlier in the day, an official Microsoft 365 service update post said we're investigating an issue impacting users' ability to access various Microsoft 365 apps and services. The Microsoft spokesperson said on Friday that the majority of services were recovered hours earlier. Meanwhile, companies are scrambling trying to resolve issues with the IT outages. Many broadcast networks in Australia were scrambling as systems failed, while Sky News UK went completely off air as a result of the issues. It is now back on air. Several supermarkets were also crippled, with payment systems down. Pictures from Australia show Coles supermarkets' self-checkout tills closed. Hospitals in Germany and Israel have reported disruptions, as well as GP services in the UK. Travel plans across the globe have also been thrown into disarray, with flight, taxis, and rail affected. Airports across Europe and the US and the global southeast have reported system failures, with many passengers having to manually do processes typically done by machine. Samira Hussain, the BBC's South Asia correspondent, was at Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi, India for a flight to Kolkata. I just manually made my boarding passes, and the stickers for our check-in bags were also done by hand, adding it is absolute chaos at the airport. Hong Kong's airport authority said the outage was affecting some of the global airlines at Hong Kong International Airport, with said airlines switching to manual check-in. Flight operations have not been affected, it added. Across the US, airlines United, Delta, and American Airlines have issued a global ground stop on all of their flights, while Australian carriers Virgin and Jetstar have delayed or cancelled flights. According to aviation analytics firm Cerium, more than 1,000 flights have been cancelled around the world following the outages. Airports in Tokyo, Berlin, and Prague have also been reportedly affected. Switzerland's largest airport in Zurich has said planes are currently not allowed to land. A spokesperson for the Home Affairs Ministry in Australia, which has been particularly hard hit, said the outage appeared to be related to an issue at a cybersecurity firm, while the country's cybersecurity watchdog said that there was no information to suggest a malicious attack. Current information is this outage relates to a technical issue with a third-party software platform employed by affected companies. Alaskan officials said many 911 and non-emergency call centres were not properly working. But Australian authorities say 000 call centres, the main emergency contact in the country, are not affected. The UK has seen its hottest day of the year so far on Friday, as 31.2 centigrade was reached at Heathrow in West London. The previous highest temperature recorded so far this year was 30.5 centigrade at Wisley in Surrey on the 26th of June. Temperatures across the UK are widely expected to reach 25 to 31 Celsius on Friday as the hot spell peaks. Cooler weather will spread eastward over the weekend, with temperatures more typical for July expected by Sunday. After a pretty cool start to July, where temperatures have been around 2 centigrade below average, many of us have welcomed some summertime warmth. Many places haven't reached 25 centigrade since the short burst of warm weather at the end of June. Heat health alerts are in force across the Midlands, eastern and southern England until 11 a.m. on Saturday. These alerts are primarily for the health and social care services, warning that a heat could impact the elderly and those with underlying health conditions. For this to be declared a heatwave, the Midlands, much of southern England and East Anglia would need to have 3 successive days above 27 degrees. That temperature, the threshold, rises to 28 for London and some of the home counties. With the temperatures starting to fall by the weekend, we are likely to fall just short of this brief hot spell officially being a heatwave in most areas, with the cooler air moving in from the west on Saturday. Along with heavy and thundery showers, temperatures will drop for many. Though across eastern areas of England, the heat will remain for one more day, with highs expected to reach 26 degrees. By Sunday, the very warm and humid air will have cleared, so temperatures across the UK will be more typical of mid-July at 16 to 22 degrees. Temperatures have reached or exceeded the 30 centigrade mark every summer since 1993, so it's not unusual for the weather to get this hot. The number of days we see over 30 centigrade during the summer has vastly increased in recent decades compared with the early 20th century as a result of climate change. Netflix said it added more than 8 million subscribers in the 3 months to June, reeling in audiences for the new season of Bridgerton and new drama Baby Reindeer. The gain was almost double what investors had predicted, proving the lasting power of the firm's tightening restrictions on password sharing. But the streaming giant warned the impact of the crackdown on sharing passwords may run out in the coming months, leading to slower growth in the months ahead. It said it was looking into new areas such as sports, live events, and gaming to extend its lead. Its plans also include a multiplayer video game tied to the release of a new season of the popular dystopian series Squid Game later this year, as well as offerings linked to shows such as Emily in Paris. If we execute well, better stories, easier discovery, and more fandom, while also establishing ourselves in newer areas like live games and advertising, we believe that we have a lot more room to grow, the company said to investors. For now, the streaming giant remains the leader to beat for the industry. The gains last quarter brought its total number of subscribers to more than 277 million globally. With more than 2 people in most households, it estimated that its total audience numbers more than 600 million. In the UK, Netflix's cheapest package, which comes with adverts, costs £4.99. The same deal in the US costs $6.99. Netflix said its ads business was making steady progress, with subscriptions to the plan up 34% in the quarter. But it did not share the total number and warned that the ads business would not start having a meaningful impact on revenue until 2026, noting that for now subscribers were growing far faster than advertisers. Jamie Lumley, an analyst at Third Bridge, said while Netflix's ad-supported tier continued to be an important part of the subscriber growth, it had yet to prove itself from a revenue standpoint. Our experts highlight that Amazon has made a much bigger splash in the ad market, and Netflix needs to continue working on scale in this segment if it wants to be a major player. Total revenue was $9.56 billion, up 17%, compared with the same period on 2023, while profits were $2.15 billion compared to $1.5 billion a year ago. The firm said it was expecting a year-on-year growth of 14% in the July to September period. A mass IT outage has caused travel chaos around the world, with banking and healthcare services also badly affected. Many flights have been grounded with queues and delays at airports. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike has admitted that the problem was caused by an update to its Falcon antivirus software designed to protect Microsoft Windows devices from malicious attacks. Microsoft has said it's taking mitigation action to deal with the lingering impact of the outrage. The problems were caused by a defect in a content update for Microsoft Windows devices, the boss of global cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, George Kurtz, said. He added that the issue has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed. Mr. Kurtz said the issues did not affect other operating systems, adding that this is not a security incident or cyber attack. His statement followed widespread reports that CrowdStrike, which produces antivirus software, had issued a software update that caused Windows devices to crash. CrowdStrike's shares plunged as much as 21% in early pre-market trade. Microsoft also lost ground, as did travel and leisure stocks, as investors weighed the potential disruption for holidaymakers. They said it was the firm's mission to make sure everyone on its customers recovered completely from the outage, but he added that this would not happen automatically, and it could be some time before everything was up and running as before. We're deeply sorry for the impact that we've caused to customers, to travellers, to anyone affected by this, including our companies. CrowdStrike has issued its fix, but according to those in the know, it will have to be applied separately to each and every device affected. Every machine will require a manual reboot in safe mode, causing a massive headache for IT departments everywhere. Something important to note here is that personal devices like your home computer or mobile phone are unlikely to have been affected. This outage is impacting businesses. Microsoft is advising clients to try a classic method to get things working, turning it off and on again, in some cases up to 15 times. The tech giant said that this has worked for some users of virtual machines, PCs where the computer is not in the same place as the screen. Several reboots, as many as 15 have been reported, may be required. but overall feedback is that reboots are an effective troubleshooting step at this stage. It is also telling customers with more in-depth computing knowledge that they should delete a certain file, the same solution one CrowdStrike employee has been sharing on social media. But this fix is intended for experts and IT professionals, not regular users. The problems have emerged across the world, but were first noticed in Australia, and possibly felt most severely in the air travel industry. There are delays at UK airports, with long queues reported at London's Stansted and Gatwick. Ryanair said it had been forced to cancel a small number of flights today, and advised passengers to log on to their Ryanair account once it was back online to see what options there are. British Airways also cancelled several flights. Several US airlines, notably United, Delta and American Airlines, grounded their flights on the globe. Australian carriers Virgin Australia and Jetstar also had to delay or cancel flights as departure screens went blank at Sydney Airport. Airports in Tokyo, Amsterdam and Delhi also said services have been affected. Meanwhile, the problems have also hit trains, payment systems and healthcare providers. UK railway companies reported delays and said they were experiencing widespread IT issues. Payment systems, many shops could only take cash. In the UK, supermarkets including Morrisons and Waitrose spent the morning unable to accept contactless payments. It was the same in Australian supermarkets including Woolworths and Coles, while financial institutions such as the National Australian Bank were also affected. In healthcare, Israel said 15 hospitals had switched to manual processes, although this did not affect medical treatment. Ambulances were told to take new cases to other hospitals. In the UK, some doctors' surgeries in England reported issues with booking systems. As the full extent of the disruption became clear, more firms and institutions started reporting problems. The US state of Alaska warned that its emergency services were affected. Broadcasters were also caught up in the chaos, including Sky News in the UK, which spent several hours off air. The London Stock Exchange said it was working as normal, but there were issues with its new service, used by companies to report market-sensitive information in a timely way. And Poland's largest container terminal, the Baltic Hub in the northern city of Gdansk, said the outage was hampering terminal operations and asked companies not to send containers to the port. The outage might also impact people getting paid on time. Melanie Pizzi, head of the Global Payroll Association, said that she'd been contacted by numerous clients who couldn't access their payroll software. She said the outage could mean that firms are unable to process staff payments this week, but there may be a knock-on effect too. We could see a backlog with regard to processing payrolls for the coming month end, which may delay employees from receiving their monthly wage. If you're worried about your own personal devices, we have some good news. The software at the centre of this outage is generally used by businesses, which means that most people's personal computers won't be impacted. That means if you're wondering whether you need to delete a certain file to avoid your computer restarting instantly, the answer is no, you don't. It's a reminder of the complexity of our modern digital infrastructure that CrowdStrike, a company that's not exactly a household name, can be at the heart of such worldwide disarray. The US firm based in Austin, Texas, is a listed company on the US Stock Exchange, featuring in both the S&P 500 and the high-tech NASDAQ indexes. Like a lot of modern technology companies, it hasn't been around that long. It was of cybersecurity services. It tends to get called in to deal with the aftermath of hack attacks. It has been involved in investigations of several high-profile cyber attacks, such as when Sony Pictures had its computer system hacked in 2014. But this time, because of a flawed update to its software, a firm that is normally part of the solution to IT problems has instead caused it. In its last earnings report, CrowdStrike declared a total of nearly 24,000 customers. That's an indication not just of the size of the issue, but also the difficulties that could be involved in fixing it. Each of those customers is a huge organization in itself, so the number of individual computers affected is hard to estimate. Mobile phone, pay, TV and broadband companies have been banned from surprise price rises during a contract. In new deals from the 17th of January, providers must tell customers about any mid-contract price rises at the point of sale and in pounds and pence. This must be done in a clear and comprehensible way, Ofcom has ordered. Complaints from customers have risen about large unexpected price rises at a time when other bills have been soaring. Ofcom has said that many telecoms companies had changed contract terms in recent years to include price rises during a contract that were linked to inflation. This was usually on top of a 3.9% standard increase. That meant customers, when agreeing to a deal, could not budget for unknown price rises in the future. Cristina Luna Esteban, Ofcom's Telecoms Policy Director, said that people need to have certainty about their monthly outgoings, but that's impossible if you're tied into a contract where the price could change based on something as hard to predict as future inflation. We stepped into behalf of phone, broadband and pay TV customers to stamp out this practice so people can be certain of the price they will pay, compare deals more easily and take advantage of the competitive market we have in the UK. The move was proposed in December and has been through a consultation process. Ofcom said as of April about 6 in 10 broadband and mobile customers were on contracts subject to inflation-linked price rises. Many were unaware of the rates of inflation, which chart the rising cost of living, and some found it difficult to estimate the effect on their payments. However, some providers were offering fixed price deals in what the regulator described as a competitive market. Consumer groups were circumspect about the change in the rules. Tom Mackins from Citizens Advice criticised Ofcom for the time it had taken to reach the decision. In the meantime, billions of pounds had collectively been added to bills when many people were struggling. While we welcome steps to ban inflation-linked hikes, the announcement falls short of a full ban on prices rise mid-contract. Ofcom has also left the door wide open for mobile and broadband providers to sneakily include prices may vary small print in their contracts, leaving consumers exposed to wholly unpredictable price rises. That's why we've always been clear that fixed should mean fixed. A manhunt is underway after a prisoner absconded from a West London prison while being treated in a hospital. Graham Gom, 63, was taken to Hammersmith Hospital by prison staff yesterday after becoming unwell. He had been on remand for burglary offences at HMP Wormwood Scrubs, the Met Police confirmed. There is nothing to suggest that he is a threat to the public. Police were alerted at about 1:20 a.m. British Standard Time on Thursday that Mr. Gom had absconded. Mr. Gom was last seen wearing a grey t-shirt and grey tracksuit. Officers are carrying out searches and reviewing CCTV, as well as visiting addresses related to him. A Force spokesperson said there was also concern about Mr. Gom's welfare, as he is undergoing medical treatment before he escaped. HMP Wormwood Scrubs is a Category B men's prison which houses around 1,000 inmates. It is the second time in 3 years that a prisoner has gone on the run from the prison during a medical visit. In 2021, Man Ray Walfall fled when he was being taken to a central London hospital after a suspected medical episode. The spokesman for Strictly Come Dancing's Graziano Di Prima has confirmed the star kicked celebrity partner Zara McDermott once during rehearsals last year, which led to his removal from the show. There is never a time when kicking or any sense of that is right, Mark Bukowski said, and he knows that. He knows he's made a mistake. He apologised at the time. But McDermott said that she was involved in incidents she now finds incredibly distressing to watch back. De Prima thought the matter had been resolved, but video of the incident is believed to have been brought to the attention of the BBC last week, and the dancer was then removed from this year's lineup. The show has been at the centre of controversy after complaints about fellow professional dancer Giovanni Panice as well as De Prima. Panice has denied any suggestion of abusive or threatening behaviour. Mr. Bukowski said the news agenda has focused on an isolated incident De Prima deeply regrets and has apologised for. The deluge of commentary, too often without context or nuance, has provoked a pile-on that has left a young man in a very vulnerable state. In this case, like in many others, media and social media have immense power to build and destroy careers. But in a news statement to BBC News, McDermott's spokesman said it's a matter of public record that the BBC deemed the conduct to be so severe that they removed him from the show immediately. Zara has already confirmed in a statement released on her social media earlier this week that the conduct was not a singular incident. On Saturday, De Prima said he deeply regrets the events that led to his departure and that his intense passion and determination to win might have affected his training regime. Ex-Love Island star and documentary presenter McDermott then posted her own statement saying she was involved in incidents in the training room that she now finds incredibly distressing to watch back. The video has not been made public and the circumstances surrounding it are not known. Mr. Bukowski said De Prima did not clearly remember the incident but did not deny there was a kick, and the spokesperson accepted that he had crossed the line. He did, however, deny reports that he spat on his dance partner. De Prima does remember that he was pushing McDermott quite hard in training on the day in question, but he doesn't recognise some of the issues surrounding it, he added, referring to recent newspaper reports. The descriptions of what is being commented online and how he remembers it are not aligned, and he said it was absolute rubbish that a single incident was typical of what went on during weeks and weeks of training. There is also lots of evidence of De Prima and McDermott having a huge amount of fun together through his process. In her statement, McDermott said she fully understood the level of commitment and hard work that Strictly was going to be, and I dedicated everything to it. I'm a resilient person and I was fully prepared to put in whatever it took. Much of the Strictly experience was everything I could have dreamt of, and the show's team were so amazing to work with. However, my experience inside the training room was very different. Reports have been made about my treatment on the show, and there were witnesses to some events, as well as videos of particular incidents, which are incredibly distressing to watch. De Prima has now returned to Italy, his home country, and is now doing manual labour on a remote farm. He said he has literally cut himself off from civilization. I think that's a wise thing to do, supported by his wife. He's coming to terms with his mental health issues. Mr. Bukowski said he had advised De Prima to seek professional assistance since his removal from the show. Following revelations, it was announced that the BBC will put a member of Strictly production staff in all rehearsals in the future to observe behaviour. There will also be enhanced training and 2 new dedicated welfare producers, one for the celebrity contestants and the other for the professional dancers. The director of Unscripted, Kate Phillips, said the vast majority of those who have taken part in the show have had positive experiences. If issues are raised with us or we've been made aware of inappropriate behaviour, we'll always take that seriously and act. Concerns that have arisen have been fundamentally related to training and rehearsals. The BBC has now taken decisive steps to further strengthen the welfare and support in place for everyone involved with this production. But Mr. Bukowski said arguably the BBC has come to this late to addressing the issues and push it. The training process for novice dancers is intense. It is an incredibly difficult thing to do, from turning that person from an ugly duckling into a swan. Former Strictly professional in 2008 to 2015 described it as a world of glitz and glamour and a lot of pressure. Any verbal or physical abuse is not acceptable at all. I don't believe violence of any kind, abuse of any kind is the answer to anything. You've got to be able to regulate your emotions. You are an adult. You've got to regulate it. You've got to understand that you're hired to do a very intense job and you get frustrated, tired, you can snap, but physical abuse obviously is a no. She called for better psychological evaluations. We see the glamour and the glitter on Saturday night, but prior to that it is grueling hours, hard work, a lot of emotions, a lot of stress. Broadcaster Reverend Richard Coles said he had a whale of a time when he took part in the show in 2017, but that he wasn't surprised by the current furore. Strictly is show business. The family-friendly, glittering surface that you see, well, behind that there's all sorts of things going on, not least intense competition. It's such a big show. The professional dancers have been doing it literally since they were kids in a very disciplined, very rigorous, very tough, sometimes even brutal kind of world. I think sometimes when celebrities encounter that, there's a kind of culture of shock. Somebody I know who worked on the show for a long time described it as a great show with a dark heart. I didn't really understand what they meant when they said that, but I think it's partly that in the glitter of the glitter ball, you see one thing, but off stage, of course, it's a different story. There is a wider culture of intense competition in the dance world, according to Terry Hyde, a dancer turned psychotherapist who has set up the charity Steps to provide mental health support for dancers. Many dance teachers and choreographers are supportive, but others still work in the old school way. They are perfectionists, they want to get it right, and they don't want to be made to look stupid by a partner that can't dance. These celebrities, unless they've done musical theatre, have probably never done anything like that before. The other thing to say is good dancers don't necessarily make good choreographers or good teachers. Technology stocks around the world have slumped on fears about the global computer chip industry. The sell-off came after a report that the Biden administration could be set to further tighten restrictions on exports of semiconductor equipment to China. Comments by former US President Donald Trump that Taiwan, the biggest producer of chips, should pay for its own defense added to the concerns. In the US, the tech-heavy Nasdaq index closed 2.7% lower on Wednesday, while chip stocks have also tumbled in Europe and Asia. Regardless of the outcome of the elections, I think we will see the US increase some of the restrictions, said Bob O'Donnell, chief analyst at Tech Analysis Research. How far they will take it, though, is the big question. In Asia, chip-making giant TSMC lost 2.4% on Thursday, while semiconductor equipment maker Tokyo Electron was down by 8.8%. That came after Nvidia closed 6.6% lower in New York on Wednesday, while AMD lost more than 10%. In Europe, shares in ASML, which makes chip-making machines, tumbled by almost 11%. The falls came after Bloomberg News reported on Wednesday that the US government is preparing to impose its tightest curbs yet on semiconductor making equipment to China if firms like ASML and Tokyo Electron continue to give the country access to their advanced chip technology. The US Commerce Department, ASML, and Tokyo Electron declined to comment when contacted. The Biden administration has previously taken steps to restrict China's access to advanced chip technology. In October, it restricted exports to China of advanced semiconductors used in artificial intelligence (AI) technology. The remarks on Taiwan by Mr. Trump also hinted at possible disruption of global chip supplies. Taiwan produces most of the world's advanced chips. Investors always react to any remarks from the US, but despite these comments, the long-term business trend for the semiconductor industry is clearly going up, said Marco Mezger, Executive Vice President of memory chip technology company Newmont. Parents should not take their children on term time holidays and have a responsibility to keep them in school, the new Education Secretary has said. In her first interview in the role, Bridget Phillipson said that there will have to be correspondence and consequences for parents who fail to do so. She said that punishments like fines are a well-established practice and are here to stay. It comes as some parents say weighing a fine against the much larger cost of a trip during the school holidays makes the decision a no-brainer. Minimum fines imposed by local authorities for taking children out of class without permission for 5 school days will rise from £60 per child to £80 per child from August. Head teachers have some say over which cases they refer to the council for potential fines. Repeated failure to ensure school attendance can result in a court prosecution, a fine of up to £2,500, a community order, and even a jail sentence of up to 3 months. But some parents have said they are saving thousands by going away during term time rather than school holidays. Ms. Phillipson said it was important that parents honour our responsibilities. Children not being in school doesn't just have an impact on those individual children, it means that teachers often have to recover material because children have missed out. The Education Secretary has also been setting out plans for a wide-ranging review of what is taught in schools in England. Launching the curriculum review on Friday, Ms. Phillipson said all children should have a strong academic foundation in subjects like English and maths, but also have access to music, art, drama and sports. At Heworth Grange School in Gateshead, Erin Anderson is Head of Arts and Culture, covering subjects like music and drama. She says access to those subjects makes pupils assets to the community. They learn so much through performing. They learn how to work together as team players, they get to stand on their own 2 feet, they can speak more confidently, they can perform and make themselves better in front of people. Year 9 pupil Lucy said that she sometimes struggles in lessons like English and science because she is really dramatic, but says she finds her creative subjects less stressful. When I'm in dance and drama and stuff, I can be myself in my lessons. I can be loud and it's just a confidence boost. The Department for Education said that after the review, all state schools will have to follow the national curriculum up to the age of 16, including academies which do not currently have to do so. Ms. Phillipson also said that she was committed to Labour's promise to deliver free breakfast clubs across all primary schools, but said it would take time to roll out. She said that the clubs would contribute to tackling the really big challenge of widespread persistent absence in schools. She also promised to carry out the role of the government-funded childcare hours promised by the previous government, but said it would be a tough challenge to ensure enough places were available and that the workforce was in place to deliver it. A 72-year-old woman said that she is honoured to have been given the role of testing roller coaster rides at Alton Towers Resort. Jackie Smith, who lives near Stonehenge in Wiltshire, will be known as the theme park's first chief thrill seeker. In 1971, when she was 19, Miss Smith became the first woman to join the parachute regiment, the Red Devils. She was the first woman to receive its prestigious Red Beret just 2 years later. In her new role, lasting 12 months, the grandmother of 4 will be responsible for attending the theme park's biannual Thrill Seeker Summit and testing rides. It's my absolute honour to be appointed Alton Towers' first chief thrill seeker. I can't wait to bring my expertise from a lifetime of adventure to help ensure they continue to set new standards. My first time on the iconic Nemesis Reborn definitely met my high standards for thrills. It felt like my first jump all over again. Miss Smith, who has completed 5,000 parachute jumps, said she had to convince her commanding officer in the parachute regiment to allow her to try parachuting, which was forbidden for women at the time. At 19 years old, I was stationed in Aldershot, which was the home of the parachute regiment. I saw the guys training and something just clicked in me. I pestered my commanding officer to let me take basic training. At the time, the top brass wouldn't let women jump because they were worried they would flash their knickers on the way down. It was absolutely ridiculous. Eventually, my persistence paid off, and I was allowed to take basic training, and I never looked back. Ms. Smith has also taken part in base jumping off El Capitan in America's Yosemite National Park and opened at the 1986 Commonwealth Games while 4 months pregnant. Bianca Sammet, Divisional Director at Alton Towers Resort in Staffordshire, said she was excited to become a true female trailblazer to the theme park. We're so excited to welcome the inspirational Jackie to our team. Her 7 decades of thrills expertise is sure to elevate our attractions at Alton Towers. Jackie, a true female trailblazer, shows that you're never too old for thrills. American stand-up comedy legend Bob Newhart, whose deadpan delivery style earned him numerous awards, has died at the age of 94. The star of TV series The Bob Newhart Show, Newhart passed away at home after a series of short illnesses, his publicist said in a statement. Newhart became a stand-up comic after starting his career as an accountant in Chicago. He went on to guest host Johnny Carson's Tonight Show 87 times. More recently, he starred in classic Christmas film Elf and The Big Bang Theory. The son of a plumber in a suburb of Chicago, Newhart graduated with a business degree from Loyola University in 1952. He served in the army for 2 years during the Korean War, then enrolled in a graduate law school before dropping out. He and a friend began recording improvised comedy routines shortly after in 1959. He was discovered by a local DJ who recommended him to the newly formed Warner Bros. Studios. His life recording from a Houston comedy club, The Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart, went on to become the first comedy album to the top of the charts. 7 more albums were released after that, with millions of copies sold. His longtime publicist Jerry Digg wrote in a statement announcing his death that Newhart began his career toiling in Chicago as an accountant by day and moonlighting at night as comedy performer and writer. Newhart was known as a pioneer of stand-up routines, involving long stories with a series of funny statements throughout rather than one single punchline joke at the end. There was a comedy sea change taking place, he said, according to his publicist. Newhart separated himself from other comedians of his generation with his modern outlook and observational delivery, never raising his voice and almost stammering at times. When he took to the stage for stand-up, his only prop was a telephone, which he used to pretend to hold a conversation with someone on the other end of the line. Newhart, who loved an audience, never really retired and was still a fixture on Hollywood sets and stages through his 80s. Comedy film director Judd Apatow was among those paying tribute on X, formerly known as Twitter. Bob Newhart was the kindest, most hilarious man. His brilliant comedy and gentle spirit made everyone he encountered so happy. Actress Kelly Newhart on The Big Bang Theory posted on Instagram what a dream it was to witness the genius that was Bob Newhart. He was classy, kind, generous, and absolutely hilarious. Director and actor Paul Feig posted on X a brilliant stand-up comedic actor who was truly one of a kind. God, he was funny. Bob Newhart, you will be missed, actress Jamie Lee Curtis posted on Instagram. Newhart is survived by his 4 children and numerous grandchildren. His wife of 60 years, Virginia Ginny Newhart, passed away in 2023. The global IT outage has caused disruption across the UK, including to healthcare and transport. GPs have been struggling to access their record systems, which include online bookings. Pharmacy services, such as access to prescriptions, have also been affected. The outage has led to long queues at UK airports and knocked some TV channels off air. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike said the global IT problems were caused by a defect in a content update and were not due to a security incident or cyber attack. The issue has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed, said George Kurtz, CEO of CrowdStrike. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden said the global outage was not a security attack or a hostile act. He said the cause appears to be a software error in an update. A fix is being put in place. We're very conscious that people are still being inconvenienced of this, not just here in the UK, but in many other countries too. The NHS said it was aware of the global outage and of issues with its EMIS system, which many GPs use to manage appointment bookings, conduct patient consultations, and update, store and share patient records, including sending prescriptions to pharmacies. Patients should attend appointments unless told otherwise. Only contact your GP if it's urgent, and otherwise please use 111. online or call 111, an NHS spokesperson said. They added there was no known impact on 999 or emergency services. The National Pharmacy Association confirmed the issue was affecting community pharmacies, including the accessing of prescriptions from GPs and medicine deliveries. Professor Camilla Hawthorne, chair of the Royal College of GPs, said the outage was of serious concern and asked people to be patient as clinics worked to keep services going. Northern Ireland's devolved government said about two-thirds of GP surgeries have been affected and would only be taking emergency appointments until the issue was resolved. Dr. Jess Harvey, a GP in Much Wenlock, Shropshire, said that her surgery had been able to access a really primitive version of EMIS, but could not access blood test results and had cancelled some routine appointments. She said that doctors were still able to issue prescriptions the old-fashioned way with handwritten notes. We're working really hard as a team to try and get through it, Dr. Harvey added. I'm sure that's the same in GP practices across the country. Neha from Ashford in Kent was among patients affected. She said that the blood test she had booked a month ago had been cancelled this morning. She was told by her GP surgery that they would not be able to access some of their computer systems and would get back in touch to rebook the blood test. I was waiting for this test and now I have to wait again. The outage has also affected travel infrastructure across the UK. Long queues have been reported at airports. British Airways said some flights were likely to experience disruption. The UK's largest airport, Heathrow, said the outage was affecting select systems. Flights are operational and we are implementing contingency plans to minimise any impact on journeys. Gatwick Airport said e-gates and some check-in systems were being impacted by the problem. Passengers there are reportedly being checked in manually. Manchester Airport said staff were also processing check-ins and boarding manually, while flights to and from the airport were mostly unaffected. It warned of a potential knock-on effect on flights later in the day. Among those who were caught up in the delays were members of a Hindu heading to Dublin from East Midlands Airport. Anna Hinsmarsh said that she and 5 other people due to travel for her sister's 4-day celebration had been left behind after being delayed when their bags had to be checked in manually. I'm really disheartened, adding that they were now struggling to rebook. Edinburgh Airport said at least 17 arrivals and 24 departures had been cancelled. A group of American tourists due to travel home to Texas from Edinburgh said that they had been forced to pay more than £5,000 for new flights. Some flights into the UK have also been disrupted. Gemma Wheeler, 30, said her family of 5 was stuck at Palma de Mallorca Airport after the IT issue caused delays at check-in. We thought it was a quick 2-hour flight and we would be back in no time to enjoy the nice weather at home. Those waiting for their flights are being urged to keep an eye on communications from their airlines and to keep essential items in their carry-on if they check in bags. Train services are still running, though National Rail has said there were widespread IT issues across the entire network, potentially leading to short notice cancellations. Additionally, other key systems, including real-time customer information platforms, are also affected. It warned that services operated by Avanti West Coast, Gatwick Express, Great Western Railway, Southern and Thameslink were among those that could see alterations and cancellations. British TV channels Sky News and CBBC are now back both on air after having been affected earlier in the day. The UK's national debt has reached its highest level since 1962, according to new official figures. The total stock of governing debt was worth 99.5% of the value of the economy in June, exceeding the highs reached during the coronavirus pandemic for the first time. The Office for National Statistics figures also showed that the amount the government owed and borrowed was more than expected in June. A statement on the state of public finances is expected from the Chancellor Rachel Reeves by the end of the month. Government debt refers to the overall amount of money owed by the government that has built up over years. Borrowing refers to the difference between public sector spending and income from taxes in a given period. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, said the latest figures were a clear reminder of the worst economic inheritance since the Second World War, which last month's borrowing figure of £14.5 billion was the lowest June total for 5 years. Helped by lower interest costs linked to falling inflation, it was still higher than economists had forecast. With pressures to spend more on some public services and election promises not to raise rates of income tax, corporation tax or VAT, many economists expect borrowing to increase. Dennis Tartakov, senior economist at KPMG, UK said that the new Chancellor faces the daunting task of funding the new government's agenda, while maintaining public finances on a sustainable footing. A combination of high levels of spending and weak growth prospects will present uncomfortable choices, deciding between even more borrowing or substantially raising taxes if spending levels are also to be maintained. Separate figures from the ONS showed that retail sales fell by more than expected last month, with shops saying they had been hit by cold weather and election uncertainty. Retail sales volumes dropped by 1.2% in June, the ONS said, following a strong growth in May. Sales at non-food retailers such as clothes shops and department stores saw the biggest fall, down 2.1%. Retailers suggested election uncertainty, poor weather and low footfall affected sales. An exhibition inspired by the Paris Olympic Games in 1924 will reveal how international artists engaged with themes of the sporting body a century ago. The event was the first truly international games according to curators. A letter sent by American long jumper William DeHart Hubbard, the first black athlete to win an Olympic gold medal in an individual event, is among rare loans on display. The exhibition at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge has been timed to open a week before the Paris 2024 Games begin. It also features works from leading modernist artists such as Pablo Picasso, Diego Rivera, Natalia Charova, and Umberto Boccaino. Their works are shown alongside classical sculptures as well as posters, fashion and photography from the Roaring Twenties, a decade that saw dramatic economic and social change. The 1924 Games was the first to be broadcast. Radio commentaries and advances in training, clothing and equipment helped athletes break new records. Olympians also become celebrities in their own right. Swimming superstar Johnny Weissmuller became a Hollywood star after winning gold, and American tennis player Helen Wills became the first woman athlete to become a global celebrity. The exhibition will also feature a less well-known part of Olympic history, the art competitions incorporated in the Games between 1912 and 1948. Miranda Warby from Suffolk was given a My Little Pony toy at the age of 4. 37 years later, she owns more than 4,000. Miranda and her partner even had to move to a bigger house with a dedicated room to display them. Her collection is now among the main attractions at Come As You Really Are, an exhibition in Croydon, South London, celebrating hobbies across the UK. More than 14,000 objects are on display as part of the series of exhibitions running until 2025 to showcase the passions and creativity in people's homes. Also featured are cosplay costumes, micro ceramics, and a collection of 2,000 carrier bags. Hundreds of people of all ages and backgrounds responded to a national call-out from artist Hitain Patel, commissioned by arts organisation Art Angel. I was fascinated by hobbies and wanted to celebrate them. It all started when Patel created a Spider-Man costume in his spare time and met other costume creators on YouTube. These intense and friendly networks of creators inspired him to seek out more homegrown creativity. It's so celebratory to see what people are doing and the different ways that they're doing it. And I just love that you can't stop it. It says something really positive. Zara Nadim from Rochdale can spend months working off and on a single fingernail, but never imagined her hobby, designs including a car, a 3D spider, and you guessed it, Spider-Man would be a display on a gallery. I've joked about it a few times, she said. Whenever I do crazy artwork I show family or friends, they would joke that should be in like an exhibition. I would laugh and be like, no one's going to look at nails in an exhibition. Amazing. It's just amazing. Ken Ford has been collecting objects since the 1950s, and his selection of vintage carrier bags is a memory palace of lost chumps. Shuttered discount supermarket chain Netto, former Croydon independent department store Alders, clothing multinational CNA, which pulled out of the UK in 2001, and electronics giant Rumbelows, once bigger than Currys and Dixons on the high street, are all represented in Ken's colour-coded display of plastic retail history. Jenny Claren's passion is recreating classic British food brands such as Toffee Crisp, Branston Pickle, and Wotsits in the form of multi-coloured painted pebbles. Also on show are the micro pots of BX Wu, who travels the world with her miniature potter's wheel, extolling the joys of mini ceramics. For medical writer and neuroscientist Eleanor Roberts, the chance to display her capes is about more than just showing off a hobby. Needlework has become therapy on days when her disability prevents her working. I can do it without thinking. I'm just using my hands, picking up, putting it down, doing nothing, resting, keeping me going. It's keeping me happy. It speaks from my experience with grief of disability. To have people see it and they can wear it, it's just wonderful. Families paying for holiday clubs this summer now face a bill of £1,045 for 6 weeks care for one child, a rise of 6%. A survey of councils across Great Britain by charity Coram Family and Childcare also suggests a shortage of places, particularly affecting children with special educational needs and disabilities. Providers say they are trying to keep costs down as they struggle with staff shortages. The government says it is providing support to low-income families. In Birmingham, Harborne Schools owner Claire Johnson is expecting a busy summer. Her club has been booked up for months. With the people I've turned away, I could run a completely new club, but I don't have the staff or a big enough venue. During term time, Miss Johnson runs an after-school club because 3 of the local primary schools clubs are completely full, and whenever she has to raise prices, it is a really big decision, including this year when the cost of a full day from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. will rise from £35 to £38. It is already a low-paid job for staff, so it's very much of passion for everybody who works in the sector. At pickup time, John at Catriona Virgo says the holiday and after-school club in Harborne has been fantastic, particularly on election day, when the school turned into a polling station and it ran a last-minute holiday club. Their summer will involve clubs, annual leave, and grandparents happy to help with a little persuasion. Across Great Britain, the average cost for a child in full-time holiday clubs for 6 weeks was now a record £1,045, Coram found. Compared with last year, the data suggests prices have risen 5% in England, 4% in Scotland, and 15% in Wales. Too many families dread the onset of the summer holidays, Coram Family and Childcare Managing Director Ellen Broom says. Finding a place will be a challenge this summer, particularly for children with special educational needs and disabilities. Event manager and public speaking coach Danny Wallace, who has 3 children, describes the summer holidays as organised chaos. Holiday clubs are unaffordable. It's just not feasible when there's 3 of them. None of the clubs caters for her eldest son's additional needs. In the past, he has found them noisy and quite intimidating, and she has to rely on family to help out. It's been a real struggle over the years to find what works for us. For solicitor and positive psychology coach Emma Sturck, holiday clubs have been a lifeline. But this year, prices in Yorkshire, where she lives, have risen by 13%, the biggest jump in England. During the summer, a whiteboard comes out and Miss Sturck fills in the days she is taking off, those her husband is on leave, and the ones her 2 children attend clubs. Some of the clubs are between £30 to £40 to £50. Multiplied by 2 and you've got lunch and getting them to and from it. Plus the clubs we used were sort of 9 a.m. until 3 p.m, so by the time you've taken them somewhere, you've not got a full working day done. It's been a difficult few years for the sector following the pandemic, when many out-of-school clubs closed their doors. The Out-of-School Alliance, which represents providers, says the picture is mixed across the country. We hear about availability being down, but I've got providers who are talking to us about how their demand is so low they haven't recovered past COVID. Chief Executive Rebecca Jackson-Rees says they are really struggling financially due to increased rents, lack of availability to find staff, and schools becoming inherently more interested in running their own provision as their budgets are squeezed. There needs to be more understanding of parents' needs and matching that with existing provision. The Welsh Government said it offered 3 and 4-year-olds of eligible parents 30 hours funded childcare up to 48 weeks a year. During the summer holidays, we are funding the Playwork scheme, which provides high-quality play, and the Food and Fun scheme will be available in every local authority area. The Scottish Government said it had announced a £16 million investment in 6 communities to understand what it took to deliver year-round local childcare systems. A further £4 million has been invested in the Extra Time programme, a joint initiative with the Scottish Football Association, to provide up to 3,000 free places per week at before and after school clubs and holiday clubs for children from families on low incomes. The Department for Education in England said local authorities were expected to offer the equivalent of 6 weeks holiday activities and food programme provision, which provides meals, activities and free school childcare places to children from low-income families. Too often, childcare is unavailable or unaffordable, particularly for disadvantaged children or those with additional needs, and we are determined to rebuild opportunity for every child. Weekly childcare costs during the summer holidays are, for England, £173.14 increase, Wales £208.82 increase, Scotland £167.49 increase. Yorkshire and the Humber £173.32 increase. Inner London £152.56 increase, and South East £215.68 increase. Emmeline Pankhurst, Rosa Parks, Marie Curie, Frida Kahlo, Jane Austen, Mary Seacole. All famous women who have changed the course of history. But how about these less familiar names? Gertrude Adele and Sacagawea. Alongside their more famous counterparts, they are being brought to life in the musical Fantastically Great Women Who Changed the World. At its latest reincarnation, marches into London's The Other Palace Theatre later this month. The women are lifted from the pages of the children's book series of the same name by Kate Pankhurst, a distant relative of Emmeline, with their achievements celebrated against a backdrop of catchy pop tracks. Annalisa Lamola plays 4 parts, including civil rights activist Rosa Parks, pioneering pilot Amelia Earhart, and Mary Seacole, the Jamaican-born Crimean war nurse. This is one of those shows where you get to play around but at the same time be educating people, allowing for women to just have an empowering moment. The variety of different women that we have on show, Amy Hodge, the real director, does an incredible job of giving us the room to make them real people, but at the same time allow them to also live in that realm of heroes, superheroes, these Marvel characters almost. Meg Haitley stars alongside her and also plays several roles, including suffragette leader Pankhurst. She says working on the show, which comes from the same team behind the hit musical Six, has been an education for the cast too. Each day I come in, it's like I'm learning more and more. I don't know Sacagawea, the only reference I had for her was actually the Night at the Museum film. The Native American explorer is a character in the 2006 hit film. There's quite a few that I wasn't really aware of, and even the bigger names I hadn't really been taught about, Emmeline Pankhurst and people like that growing up. I knew the name and I knew about Votes for Women, but I didn't know many facts about her. Lamola concurs, I didn't know about Gertrude Adele, the first woman to swim the English Channel. That was shocking to me. I know who she was, but I didn't know some of the things about her life. Pankhurst says it's one of the big messages she would like audiences to walk away with, to look a bit harder and delve into history a bit deeper, and to give children the knowledge about all these women who did a really wide range of things and then might see a little bit of themselves in. But with so many roles and a small, tight-knit cast, taking on several different parts in one production was no mean feat for the actors. This is probably the first time I'm doing this many characters and having to differentiate, especially when it comes to accents. I cover Mid-America, the Caribbean, Southern US, I'm loving it. It's just changed the pace of how I work. I was just very excited about how much of a stretch that's going to give me as an actress just to be able to tap into these different people's psyches. Haitley adds that it's a bit of fun, but it can be overwhelming. To distinguish each character is a lot. We had a brilliant accent coach come in and that's really helped. Another character I play is called Agent Fifi and she's French. So to go from Emmeline Pankhurst, who's northern, to Fifi, who's got a flirtatious, coquettish side, it's fantastic. With an all-female cast, there's almost an entirely female creative team behind the scenes too. This is my first time being in a rehearsal room that is all female. Of course, we've got men in our company, but the immediate and direct family right now that in rehearsal spaces is just us women. I feel so safe to be around them. I feel so safe about my hormones. A lot of people don't talk about this, but our voices are affected when you're on your period. So just to be able to say that and somebody understand that and offer some help, it feels like such a small thing, but it goes such a long way. 2 powerhouse women are also behind the eclectic musical numbers, incorporating genres including pop, rap, ballads, and soul. Miranda Cooper is best known for co-writing hits for Girls Aloud, Sugar Babes, and Kylie Minogue, while Jennifer DeSilvio has penned tracks for the lives of Miley Cyrus, Heinz, Anne-Marie, and Beth Ditto. Cooper also co-wrote the script. Haitley says you're getting to sing these epic pop songs, and not only that, it's with the most brilliant messages. I play Pankhurst and her song Deeds Not Words. I feel so powerful doing it, I hope that means other people are going to feel the same hearing it as well. The musical, like the book series, is aimed at younger audiences. Performing for a younger audience shouldn't prove too challenging for Lamola. It's easy for me because I do voiceovers for Hey Dougie, the CBeebies show, and having done panto in the past, you learn how to engage with kids. Haitley is also looking forward to connecting with younger audiences. I love the idea of possibly being somebody's first experience of theatre, and that can involve children but not in a patronising manner. They're actually just getting all the information, a bit like how I grew up with horrible histories. It feels like a similar sort of tone. Pankhurst says it's been a thrill to see her books come to life on stage. Every time I've been to see it, I feel like I'm sitting a bit taller in my chair. I can go out and take on the world and be a strong, powerful woman. And to think a younger audience are seeing that as well is really special. The show first debuted as a touring production in 2021 and was well received. The Guardian's Arifa Akbar described it as a high-voltage show with great charisma. She added, ordinarily a production built on a simplistic smash, the patriarchy brand of empowerment would leave me cold, but this is not that. It is certainly feel-good, but surprisingly nuanced. The dream team behind the show have managed to turn the commercialised business of heroin worship into something that's both nuanced and unapologetically joyful. It has all the energy of a girl band concert, mixed with just enough history to tempt young people to read up on its stars once its final notes fade away. A report last year, the Women in Theatre Survey update, suggested that only 6% of women working in theatre felt opportunities were increasing. Based on the experiences of 155 women, 75% called for childcare support to help address gender equality within the sector. Lamona says that there is still a way to go for women to achieve parity in the industry. I feel like women spend so much time trying to break into male spaces in a very masculine kind of way, where we end up having to act like them and they only accept those that act like them. And that's going to be the real truth about success in our industry. When you have everybody that's different being able to lead a room without us having the quintessential tick boxes of what that person should look like. Blur's frontman Damon Albarn does not agree with Bob Dylan's policy to ban mobile phones from his upcoming UK tour. In an interview, Albarn explained his reservations. If you start banning things, where does it end? I think you've just got to turn up and do your thing. People won't want to be on their phone if you're engaging with them correctly. Earlier this week, Bob Dylan announced a 10-date UK tour in November, including shows in Bournemouth, Nottingham and Wolverhampton. At every venue, fans on arrival will be made to switch off their mobile phones and place them in a Yonder pouch, which will be locked by staff. The gig goer can hold onto the pouch during the show, but it will only be reopened if they leave the building. Yonder pouches have been used in US schools since 2014 to try and tackle the problem of phones disturbing lessons. Dave Chappelle, the comedian, was an early adopter in the entertainment world, employing the use of them for a tour in 2015 as a way of protecting his material. His fellow stand-up Chris Rock also used the pouches for his 2018 UK Arena tour. In 2022, Jack White, formerly of the White Stripes, organised a phone-free UK tour. Music journalist Mark Beaumont attended the show at the Hammersmith Apollo in London, writing in NME, "The crowd was more pumped and enthused than any I'd seen in the digital age. Instead of screens in the air, there were hands. Instead of lit-up faces lowered like a 4G prayer meeting, there were bobbing heads entirely engaged with the show." In an interview on Apple Music with Metallica's Lars Ulrich, Jack White explained his reasoning. "I don't have a set list, I really react to the crowd just like a stand-up comedian would. If I finish a song and it's ta-da and it's crickets, I don't know what to do now. What I don't like is that how they really feel, or are they just not even paying attention because they're doing this, they're texting. When you go to a movie theatre, a symphony, church, there are all these moments in life when people put them away and engage. I love the idea of rock concerts being punk. I love that, but I don't like the idea that I don't know what to play next. Alicia Keys, Childish Gambino, Guns N' Roses and Lumineers have also tried out the system. Arguments against using it if a major incident happened, particularly after the Manchester Arena attack. As for Bob Dylan on the freewheeling Bob Dylan track, I Shall Be Free, he sang, "Well, my telephone rang, it would not stop." But the only explanation given for his use of Yonder pouches is on the press release for his tour, which simply says it will make the occasion even more unique. Albarn was speaking ahead of the cinema release of a new Blur documentary, To the End, which is a behind-the-scenes look at the band preparing for last summer's shows at Wembley Stadium. The concert footage shows thousands of fans holding their lit-up mobile phones aloft as the band play their hit Tender, doing the job once reserved for a cigarette lighter. Albarn said the Sunday night show was the best gig they had ever played, and mobile phones played their part in creating the atmosphere. The collapse of high street plastic surgery chain Skin on Wednesday has shocked its customers and staff, many of whom have said they are owed thousands of pounds for treatments they've not yet had or wages received. The group, which has 70 branches across the UK under various brand names, has given little detail beyond a message on its website to say its clinics have ceased trading with immediate effect, and that is doing all it can to address customer concerns. Jane, 33, from Essex, says that she is so stressed having paid £10,870 earlier this month for abdominal cosmetic surgery and liposuction. They took the full amount on the 11th of July. It was only 1 week ago. Surely they would have known they were going to go bust. Like others, when she called her clinic, she just got an automated message and has no idea if she'll get her money back. I wanted the surgery because I have 4 children and I wanted my body to be back to how it was before I had children. My dad gave me the money for this and I was going to pay him back in small installments. My sister had booked time off work to look after my children. Skin is yet to say whether refunds will be issued, but customers like Jane may struggle to get their money back, said Lisa Webb, a consumer law expert at Which. Unfortunately, when a company ceases trading, customers often end up at the back of a long line of creditors, making it nearly impossible to get a refund. However, she said there was a light at the end of the tunnel for people who paid for their services on credit, as credit card companies were jointly liable for any breach of contract by the retailer. This protection is especially valuable if the retailer has gone out of business. Sarah Keeley, 40, from Northampton, said she had paid £1,300 for 16 treatments at a skin clinic but only had 4 of them. However, because she used her Lloyds Bank credit card, she's been told that there is a chance of getting some money back. She arrived at her local clinic yesterday to find it shut with a group of women outside trying to find out what was going on. One of them told her she was owed £15,000 by the company. Sarah said she felt really sad for the staff at the clinic, who along with hundreds of others across the UK have lost their jobs overnight. I've been using this clinic for 3 years and have got to know the clinicians and staff. For such a huge company to give zero notice to staff or customers is shocking. Skin Group is part of the UK's aesthetics sector, which has grown rapidly over the past few years by filling a gap in the market for minor cosmetic treatments not covered by the NHS. The Birmingham headquartered firm started out in 1990, offering laser hair removal, but branched out to provide services ranging from acne treatment and wart removal to lip filler and thread lifts, a type of facelift. It's been a challenging 5 years for the industry, which could not operate during COVID lockdowns. It has also been hit by higher costs and slower consumer spending due to high inflation. A host of smaller clinics have sprung up to challenge the bigger players, while health professionals such as dentists are extending their remits to include cosmetic treatments, says Catherine Shuttleworth, founder of the retail consultancy Savvy. She said that big by cosmetic firm overseas had also had a significant impact on UK clinics. Skin is not the only business to have been hit. Laser Clinics UK, a chain of 50 franchise salons, has also shut shops this year. Dr. Anion Harper-Mackin is spokeswoman for the Reconstructive and Aesthetic Surgeons, BAPRAS, and a consultant plastic surgeon. She said skin was an excellent business concept which filled a big gap in the market by taking aesthetics treatments mainstream, but she questions whether skin, which was bought out by the private equity company TreeSpan in 2019, had expanded too quickly. The group had 51 clinics back then, but now has over 70 nationwide, under brands including Skin Clinics, the Harley Medical Group, Skin Brands, the Skin Experts, and ABC Medical. Laser kit is really expensive. Their rent costs would have been too. I'm not sure, but they probably overextended themselves. Shush has yet to comment, but understands that the owners invested heavily in trying to turn the business around, but were unable to manage it. Now, as customers chase their refunds, around 450 staff face a nervous wait to find out if they will get paid. Raki, 31, who works at a skin clinic in Richmond, says staff are shocked. We had 15 minutes to clear out our clinics and go home. All our clients were trying to get their money back. Some people were due to get their stitches out. She worked for the group for nearly a decade, but says she and her colleagues were terminated after a 10-minute video call with no remorse, no empathy, no redundancy pay, not even a final payslip. Lucy, 32, said she worked at the skin clinic in Guildford and had no idea the company was in trouble. Then, like Raki, yesterday staff learnt the news at a Zoom meeting. We've been told we're not going to get paid this month. We had to leave a note on the front door for our clients. They've all spent thousands of pounds on procedures and treatments. According to Citizens Advice, if your employer is insolvent, you can claim back some of the money your employer owes you from the Redundancy Payment Service, which is a government service. You can claim up to 8 weeks unpaid wages, pay for annual leave, including annual leave you were owed but didn't take, statutory notice pay, statutory redundancy pay, check if you're entitled to statutory redundancy pay. The maximum amount you can claim for a week's unpaid wages or annual leave is £700 if your employment ended on or after the 6th of April 2024, or £643 if it ended between the 6th of April 2023 and the 5th of April 2024. If there's one word Jade Thirlwall's fans are sick of, it's soon. They hate me for that, the singer says. I'm so sorry. After Little Mix announced they would go on a break after their 2022 tour, Jade is the last member of the girl group to release her solo music and has long been appeasing fans with the promise it was on its way. Now her debut single, Angel of My Dreams, has arrived. I'm ready to give some pop girly drama. I've been writing for 2.5 years now for this project. I think I needed that time to evolve as my own artist outside of Little Mix. Little Mix was first put together on The X Factor in 2011, made up of Jade Perry Edwards, Leanne Pinnock, and until 2020, Jessie Nelson. It was Jade's third audition for the show. She was 18 and dreaming of making it as a solo artist. But in a clip from the series, you can see the moment her face crumbles as Judge Craig Rowland tells her, "I would actually love to see you in a girl group." I think the reason why I reacted like that was because in my mind, when I pictured a girl group of the time, the bands that were popping off were like the Pussycat Dolls, who I loved, but they were really sexy, and little old me stood there in my braces and bow tie. I was like, how am I meant to be that in a girl band? Also, growing up, I did have a tough time at school, like being bullied and stuff by girls. I was scared, I think, more than anything, that I'd be put with a bunch of girls that I didn't fit in with, because I still am, but I was a bit of a nerd and weirdo. Looking back, Jade says she wasn't ready to be a solo artist. I know back then I could never have done it on my own. I needed to go through my adult life and my womanhood with those girls around me to get me through that. The music industry is brutal, especially if you're young, and you're going into it on your own, so I'm grateful. In Angels of My Dreams, Jade doesn't shy away from the brutality of the music business. You only care about money, she sings. Selling my soul to a psycho. They say I'm so lucky. Better act like you're lucky, honey. It also opens with a sample of Sandy Shaw's Puppets on a String. The song was the UK's first ever winning Eurovision entry in 1967, and Jade accepts fans might need to be Eurovision superfans to like herself to get the reference. But she feels using the song lets her reflect how it was going to be in a girl group forged on reality TV. Me using that is a kind of a more fingers up to what the industry said for such a long time about us as a band. We worked really hard and we wrote a lot of our music. We had a very clear vision of who we wanted to be. When you come from these shows, you get labelled constantly as they're manufactured or they're puppets or they're blah blah blah. We always had to fight that. Little Mix became one of the most successful girl groups ever, with billions of streams and 3 Brit Awards. Now, with her first solo track released, Jade feels she's now able to have an individual identity as an artist, and emphasises she hasn't felt the pressure of being the last of her bandmates to go solo. I think if I'd released sooner, I might have felt a bit more pressure. I don't feel that. I'm proud of my artistry, and I think we're all very different as solo artists too, so I don't need to feel the pressure in that sense. With Angel of My Dreams, Jade says she wanted to come out with a bang, surprise people, and push myself creatively. So what more can fans expect from Jade as she finalises her album? The unexpected. I wanted to make sure I had pretty much a whole body of work ready to go before launch. It's the perfect song to introduce everyone to the Jade world. Doctor Who star Ncuti Gatwa has come face to face with his waxwork doppelganger as it was unveiled at Madame Tussauds in London. In a video capturing the meeting between the Scottish actor and his wax clone, the 31-year-old was left shocked and giggling at the uncanny likeness. "Oh God, it's the teeth are so accurate," Gatwa said as he studied the statue. The 15th Doctor's waxwork will be open for the public to view from Friday. Gatwa, who made his name as one of the stars of Netflix hit Sex Education, worked with artists from Madame Tussauds to get his body measurements, head shape and eye colour correct, before giving his final approval to the likeness in May. The waxwork will be part of the new film and TV-themed zone at the Baker Street attraction, which also features James Bond, E.T. and Millie Bobby Brown's Enola Holmes. Russell T Davies, the current Doctor Who showrunner who led the 2005 revival of the series, visited the final set for the official unveiling. Gatwa was born in Rwanda in 1992 during the country's civil war. His family fled to the UK when he was 2 and he grew up first in Edinburgh, then in Dunfermline. The Waxwork shows Gatwa dressed in one of his outfits from the series, which featured in the first episode called Space Babies. Gatwa first appeared as the time-travelling alien in the last of the 3 60th anniversary episodes, alongside Scottish actor David Tennant, who has played the Doctor twice. There is not the first time Madame Tussauds has had a brush with a two-hearted Time Lord. The attraction was featured in the third Doctor John Pertwee's 1970 episode called The Spearhead from Space, in which he battled plastic dummies called the Autons. 10 years later, the fourth Doctor, played by Tom Baker, who was the first to have their likeness recreated in wax. Jodie Whittaker, who played the 13th incarnation of the Gallifreyan, has also been recreated by the museum. A single update pushed out from an antivirus company in the US has managed to cause global havoc today. It's been described as the biggest outage ever, and while there have been a few lately, it's certainly hard to recall something that has taken out as many services and companies across the world as this one. I stopped updating my list of brands reporting issues within an hour of starting it because there were simply so many names to keep track of. You may never have heard of the antivirus firm CrowdStrike before, but something it did to its virus scanner Falcon had a very adverse effect on computers running Windows software in their millions. Blue screen of death reported worldwide. You probably don't need them to tell you what that is. Microsoft was quick to say it was a third-party issue, in other words, not their fault. Apple and Linux users were unaffected and they rejoiced. CrowdStrike says it has now issued a fix, but several IT contacts has said every single machine in their organization will require a manual reboot in safe mode, and some of these devices are likely to be more physically accessible than others. There is currently no suggestion that it was malicious or that anybody's data has been compromised, accessed, or stolen. The cybersecurity world still advises that it's a good idea to keep on top of software updates, although perhaps today is not the day to get on that particular drum. CrowdStrike's statement when it arrived stopped short of an apology, which infuriated people online. However, shortly after the statement was released, CEO George Kurtz said to NBC News, "We're deeply sorry for the impact that we've caused to customers, to travelers, to anyone affected by this, including our companies. It's a poignant reminder of how reliant the world has become on devices managed remotely by huge companies, and how powerless it leaves them when they fail. These enormous platforms are bombarded all the time with attempted cyber attacks and ill-thought-out software updates, and most of them are caught by the tech giants' robust systems. There will no doubt be a post-mortem at Microsoft as to why this one was not. Timing is also everything. Never push an update on a Friday," sighed one computer scientist. That's because if something goes wrong and it takes time to fix, firms typically have fewer people working at weekends, so will inevitably take even longer to resolve. For that reason, many big firms do tend to prefer updates during the middle of the week. If you are a CrowdStrike customer, there are details on its support website explaining the fix. If you work for a company with an IT team, they may well be coordinating a company-wide response. Often by the time you've noticed an outage, it has fixed itself. This is certainly not the case here. It is likely to be a few days at least before the world returns to normal. A number of airlines around the world have been affected by an IT outage, with almost 1,400 flights cancelled and others delayed. In these circumstances, airlines have a duty to look after you, including providing meals and accommodation if necessary. However, Consumer Group Which says customers will not be entitled to any additional financial compensation for delays because these are extraordinary circumstances. Airlines should also reroute you as quickly as possible, though given the global nature of the problem, this may not be immediately possible. So what are your rights if your journey is disrupted? If your flight is covered by UK law, your airline must let you choose between either getting a refund or being booked onto an alternative flight, regardless of how far in advance the cancellation was made. You can get your money back for any part of the ticket you have not used. So if you booked a return flight and the out leg is cancelled, you can get the full cost of the return ticket refunded. If you still want to travel, your airline must find you an alternative flight. If another airline is flying to your destination significantly sooner or there are other suitable modes of transport available, then you have a right to be booked onto that alternative transport instead. If you're stuck abroad or at the airport because of a flight cancellation, airlines must also provide you with other assistance until you are able to fly to your destination. This includes a reasonable amount of food and drink, often in the form of vouchers, a way for you to communicate, often by refunding the cost of calls, free accommodation if you have to stay overnight to fly the next day, and transport to and from the accommodation. If your airline is unable to arrange assistance, you have the right to organise this yourself and claim back the cost later. In this case, the Civil Aviation Authority advises people to keep seats and not spend more than necessary. You are entitled to the same assistance as for a cancellation if your flight is delayed by more than 2 hours. You may also be able to claim compensation if your flight arrives at its destination more than 3 hours late. The amount is based on how far you are flying. If you are delayed by more than 5 hours and no longer want to travel, you can get a full refund. If you booked a package holiday with a company that is an ABTA, also known as AVTA member, and your flight is cancelled, you are entitled to a suitable alternative flight or a full refund. Disruptions caused by things like strikes by airports or air traffic control staff, bad weather or other extraordinary circumstances does not entitle you to extra compensation. However, in other circumstances when it is considered to be the airline's fault, you have a number of rights under UK law. These apply as long as you are flying from a UK airport on any airline arriving at a UK airport, on an EU or UK airline, or arriving at an airport in the EU or on a UK airline. What you are entitled to depends on what caused the cancellation and how much notice you are given. If your flight is cancelled with less than 2 weeks' notice, you may be able to claim compensation based on the timings of the alternative flight you are offered. The amount you are entitled to also depends on how far you are travelling. For flights under 1,500 kilometres, such as Glasgow to Amsterdam, you can claim up to £220 per person. For flights of 1,500 kilometres to 3,500 kilometres, such as East Midlands to Marrakesh, you can claim up to £350 per person, and for flights over 300, you can claim up to £520 per person. Airlines will not refund you for loss of earnings. They're only responsible for covering direct costs such as hotel rooms, meals, and alternative flights. They're not obliged to cover consequential losses. Travel insurance policies will not usually cover loss of earnings either. If you think you're going to be late back at work because of flight delays, you have a responsibility to contact your employer to let them know you won't be back as planned, legal experts say. You should agree with your employer how to deal with the absence, for example by using more annual leave or time banked in lieu. Taking unpaid leave could also be an option. Employers have no legal obligation to pay employees who are absent in this situation, experts say, unless it is stated in their contract. The stars of Baby Reindeer and The Crown are among those nominated for this year's Emmy Awards. Scottish comedian Richard Gadd, creator of controversial Netflix series Baby Reindeer, has 3 nominations for acting, writing and producing. Jessica Gunning, who plays stalker Martha, is also nominated for an acting award, as are co-stars Navu Moore, Terry and Tom Goodman-Hill, Darian. The series has 11 nominations in all. Most nominated is Japan set samurai epic Shogun with 25, while The Bear has set a record for a comedy program with 23. The top Emmy nominations are Shogun with 25, The Bear at 23, Only Murders in the Building 21, True Detective Night Country 19, and The Crown at 18. Imelda Staunton is up for Best Lead Actress in a Drama for playing Elizabeth II in the final series of Netflix royal drama The Crown. Jonathan Pryce plays Prince Philip, Dominic West as the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, Elizabeth Debicki, Diana, Princess of Wales, and Leslie Manville, Princess Margaret, also have nominations. And Claire Foy, who played Elizabeth II in the first 2 series, has a nomination for Best Guest Actress, for returning in a final scene in which the monarch reflects on her life. Olivia Colman, The Crown's former lead actress, is nominated for a different role, Chef Terry in US restaurant drama The Bear. The Bear has 10 acting nominations in total, including for its stars Jeremy Allen White and Ayo Edebiri and British guest actor Will Poulter. Other nominated British actors include Idris Elba for Hijack, Gary Oldman and Jack Lowden for Slow Horses, Tom Hollander for Feud, Jonathan Bailey for Fellow Travellers, Michaela Cole for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Matt Berry for What We Do in the Shadows, and Juno Temple for Fargo. For murder mystery comedy Only Murderers in the Building, the central cast members Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez are all in the running alongside Meryl Streep, who joined for season 3. Elsewhere, Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon will go head-to-head for their roles in The Morning Show, while Jodie Foster and Robert Downey Jr. are among the other big names on the shortlists. The Emmys are the most prestigious honours in the US TV industry. The winners will be announced on the 15th of September. Work meetings can sometimes be incredibly powerful, like the one that Jamie Tevan, chief scientist at Microsoft, said she had a few years ago with their chief executive Satya Nadella and as Sam Altman, the founder of leading AI OpenAI. It had such a visceral impact on Ms. Teevan that afterwards she sat in her car and screamed, elated at the possibility of AI. I've never done that before, but there was too much emotion. The meeting was a demonstration of the potential of OpenAI's now popular AI chatbot ChatGPT, and it left Ms. Teevan convinced that AI could be on the verge of transforming many things, including meetings. Historically, computing has been quite good at helping make the drudgery more efficient, but having something that can help throw out a bunch of ideas and be able to reflect on those that really feels qualitatively different and like a real opportunity. However, while Ms. Teevan will that specific work meeting for most of us, such gatherings with colleagues can be drudgery. Elon Musk once said that excessive meetings are the blight of big companies and almost always get worse over time. Few would disagree. Meanwhile, 72% of meetings are ineffective according to one global study. And your brain activity drops when you have a Zoom meeting, says a report by researchers at Yale University in the US and UK's University College London. Yet, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, a great many businesses with organizations were forced to move their meetings online back in 2020, with everyone sitting in front of a webcam. And like them or loathe them, video meetings are here to stay, via the likes of Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet. Ms. Teevan says the switch was fortuitous because it created the opportunity for AI to positively impact our meetings. The three big providers of video meetings technology think that this is the case and all now offer users AI-powered assistants. Zoom has AI Companion, Teams has Copilot, and Meet has Duet AI. Rapidly expanding functions already including the AI transcribing the meeting for you, suggesting questions you might want to ask, who else is present, or even in the case of Meet, it's AI attending an online meeting on your behalf. Hussein Kasai is the founder of London-based startup Quench AI, which makes AI-powered training software. He predicts that in the future, everyone in the workforce will have some sort of AI coach accompanying them to meetings. Meetings are going to be a lot more productive, informed, and able to make useful and more valuable judgments. He adds that workers will use AI to help them get clued up and give them a breakdown of the information. As a result, he says meetings will start to accomplish things, unlike now because people aren't talking about stuff that matters because they are not prepared. Mr. Kasai also envisages AI acting as a kind of moderator, offering feedback after the meeting, perhaps even pointing out the things the humans in the room feel unable to. When you have an idiot in the meeting room who goes off on a rant, and someone doesn't say much, the AI could say things like, Speaker 3, you only spoke 2% of the time, and next time you need to speak 20% of the time. Ms. Teevan claims that Copilot is already having a pretty significant impact on people's video meetings. People are able to summarize meetings 4 times faster. Yet, as numerous reports over the past year have indicated, AI isn't yet foolproof and can make mistakes, or as they are also called, hallucinations. In response to the old adage, garbage in, garbage out, Ms. Teevan says Microsoft is currently doing a lot of work to ensure that Copilot's AI prompting is as good as possible. AI prompting refers to the AI giving the best possible answers to the user's question. To do this, it needs to be able to learn as quickly as possible who the user is, what he or she does as a job, and which answers they are most likely to want. One of the most common ways that I use AI is to ask it what questions I should ask in a meeting, says Ms. Teevan. To get the correct answers from the AI, Ms. Teevan says it has to understand that I'm a research scientist and executive at Microsoft. Business psychologist Jess Baker says it is easy to understand why so many of us don't like work meetings. The data suggests, as does our experience, that most meetings are time-consuming and ineffectual. She is also not convinced that the general level of frustration will disappear altogether, thanks to AI. I think we may find that we continue to be frustrated with meetings, but for different reasons, such as annoyance with person A, who never shows up on the Monday morning meeting, but instead requests that the AI tool attend on their behalf, or frustration with the person who turns up late to every meeting and uses the AI tool to update on what they've missed so far. I can see how this could result in increased resentment and mistrust between colleagues. Yet Microsoft's Ms. Teevan is convinced that AI will help to improve meetings. It can help people feel less overwhelmed, it can help them get started and check things off their list, and it can help spark ideas, seeing things in new ways and getting support there. The boss of cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike has admitted it could be some time before all systems are back up and running after an update from the company triggered a global IT outage. Experts are warning that it could take days for big organizations to get back to normal. Although there is now a software fix for the issue, the manual process required will take a huge amount of work. The global outage has led to almost 1,400 flights being cancelled, while banking, healthcare and shops have all been affected. The issue was caused by an update from CrowdStrike caused Microsoft systems to blue screen and crash. The problem piece of software was sent out automatically to the firm's customers overnight, which is why so many were affected when they came into work on Friday morning. It meant that their computers could not be restarted. Writing on X, CrowdStrike Chief Executive George Kurtz said the issue has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed. In an interview on NBC's Today Show in the US, Mr. Kurtz said the company was deeply sorry for the impact that we've caused to customers. Many of the customers are rebooting the system, and it's coming up and it'll be operational. But he added it could be some time for some systems that won't automatically recover. The fix will not be automatic, but what the industry calls a fingers on keyboard solution. Researcher Kevin Beaumont said as systems no longer start, impacted systems will need to be started in safe mode to remove the faulty update. This is incredibly time consuming and will take organizations days to do at scale. Technical staff will need to go and reboot each and every computer affected, which could be a monumental task. CrowdStrike is one of the biggest and most trusted brands in cybersecurity. It has about 24,000 customers around the world and protects potentially hundreds of thousands of computers. One struggling IT manager said the process to get computers back up and running is quick once an IT person is at the machine, but the problem is getting them to the machines. The person is responsible for 4,000 computers in an education company and said his team were working flat out. We managed to fix all of our servers using the command prompt as a workaround, but for many of our PCs, it's not easy to do manually as we have to spread out across 5 sites. Any PCs that are left to switch on overnight are affected, and we're rebuilding them. IT experts say this manual process will be particularly hard in large organizations with thousands of computers that are potentially under-resourced in IT. Small and medium-sized businesses without dedicated IT teams or which outsource their IT issues might also struggle. The larger and more resourced companies like American Airlines appear to be fixing the problems rapidly. Interestingly, it looks like many in the US might be less affected as computers that are potentially not yet switched on can be started up to download the corrected software instead of the bad version, but that might still involve a level of manual operation. Mr. Beaumont said that one of the world's highest impact IT incidents was caused by a cybersecurity vendor. Ironically, if a customer was affected by this, it was because they followed all the usual advice that is issued by cybersecurity experts: install the security updates when you receive them. While some security companies in the past have accidentally sent out a dodgy software update, we've never seen one at this scale and this damaging. While this incident has caused widespread disruption, the WannaCry cyber attack in May 2017 was potentially worse. That was a malicious cyber attack that affected an old version of Microsoft Windows and spread automatically and uncontrollably to any computer that had the old and unprotected Windows software. It affected an estimated 300,000 computers in 150 different countries. Famously, the NHS was badly hit by it, with a huge disruption for days, affecting doctors' surgeries and hospitals around the country. In that case, it was an attack thought to be carried out by North Korea that got out of hand. The NotPetya attack a month after that was eerily similar in method and damage. In contrast, the outages on Friday are likely to be a mistake and not an attack. Andrew Malkinson says he knows at least half a dozen people currently in prison he believes could be exonerated if their cases were reviewed. Mr. Malkinson, who served 17 years in prison for a rape he did not commit, described the failures in the process for reviewing potential miscarriages of justice as a human rights atrocity. His comments followed the publication of an independent review that found he was completely failed by the Criminal Cases Review Commission, CCRC, and mounting up pressure on its head to quit. The review's author Chris Henley, KC, has backed calls for a withdrawal for similar cases weeks after the agency admitted it needed to review thousands of files. The report into how Mr. Malkinson's case was handled, published on Thursday, concluded he could have been freed 5 years after receiving a life sentence for a 2003 rape. It revealed the CCRC's investigators and leaders had failed to follow up evidence of innocence right up to 2022. It's absolutely shocking what Chris Hensley has uncovered, Mr. Malkinson said. It's vast incompetence at the very least, and I don't know what it's like at worst. It seems they, the CCRC, devote all their time and resources to finding clever me arguments about why they shouldn't, rather than looking at the police files and really investigating. His comments come after Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood said she would seek the sacking of CCRC Chair Helen Pitcher, saying she was unable to fulfil her duties. Ms Mahmood's Conservative predecessor Alex Chalk had reached a similar conclusion on the eve of the general election, having read Mr Henley's findings. Ms Pitcher has told the Ministry of Justice she will not quit. Ministers cannot directly sack her because of the CCRC being an independent part of the legal system, so a panel needs to be convened to ensure the decision is independently taken. On Friday, former Justice Secretary Lord Falconer called on Ms Pitcher to also stand down from her other position as the head of the Judicial Appointments Commission, JAC, the body that appoints all judges in England and Wales. Mr Falconer said Ms Pitcher should never have been appointed to both roles at the same time, as the CCRC's work includes challenging judges' decisions. She should go as quickly as possible because the one thing you need is confidence in our judges and confidence in the safety nets. Ms Pitcher apologised in a statement accompanying Mr Henley's report, saying that it was clear that the Commission failed Mr Malkinson. She has refused previous invitations for an interview, saying through officials that she needed to wait for the publication of the Henley report. On Thursday, she was unavailable for a broadcast interview for personal reasons. Mr Malkinson said the apology had come far, far too late. It seems to me very strongly that this is the most reluctant apology when all avenues have been explored for Ms Pitcher to seek a positive outcome. The fact that they left me languishing in jail with careless abandon, it's infuriating, deeply, profoundly infuriating. In his report, Chris Henley details how both CCRC caseworkers and leaders failed to do their job. He also criticised Ms Pitcher's public statements, which took some of the credit for Mr Malkinson's exoneration, when all the work was done by his legal team. He told Today that it would be far too complacent to say that what had happened to Mr Malkinson was an outlying aberration. There must be other cases where there are fresh opportunities for retesting DNA samples, and that should be undertaken as a matter of urgency. The CCRC says that it wants to review up to 5,500 closed cases in which DNA was an element in convictions of people for the most serious crimes. The decision was taken weeks after Mr Malkinson's exoneration a year ago, but was not revealed until April of this year. The agency's internal estimates would suggest that dozens of the cases may need to be fully reinvestigated. The body says it needs more cash from the government to carry out the work.